In the busy city of London on May 3, 1991, a child was born into a wealthy Italian family. His name was Carlo Acutis. No one in the hospital room could have imagined that this smiling baby would one day inspire millions around the world. Soon after his birth, Carlo's family returned to Milan, Italy. Their home was comfortable, modern, and filled with everything money could buy. But even as a little boy, Carlo seemed different from other children. While most children were obsessed with toys and cartoons, Carlo was strangely drawn toward churches. At only 3 years old, he would stop in front of every church they passed and ask his mother, "Can we go inside for just a minute?" His mother, Antonia, was not deeply religious at the time. In fact, she rarely attended Mass before Carlo was born. Yet something about her son unsettled her. It was as if the child understood things far beyond his age. Every morning, Carlo would kneel quietly before a crucifix beside his bed. Sometimes his mother watched from the doorway as the little boy whispered prayers with complete sincerity. As he grew older, Carlo developed two passions that seemed impossible to combine: computers and God. The 1990s were the beginning of the internet age. While other children played games endlessly, Carlo spent hours learning computer coding, web design, and video editing. Teachers were shocked by how quickly he mastered technology. But Carlo believed technology should not entertain people away from God. Instead, he wanted to use it to lead people toward heaven. At school, Carlo was cheerful, funny, and kind. He defended bullied classmates and often gave away his allowance to homeless people sleeping on the streets of Milan. One cold evening, Carlo secretly removed his own shoes and gave them to a homeless man sitting near a subway station. When his mother later discovered the missing shoes and asked what happened, Carlo simply smiled. He needed them more than I did. But Carlo's greatest love was the Eucharist. At the age of 7, he received special permission to make his first communion earlier than usual. From that moment forward, he attended Mass daily whenever possible. "The Eucharist," Carlo once said, "is my highway to heaven." While the world chased popularity, wealth, and pleasure, Carlo believed true happiness came from closeness to God. Yet beneath his joyful smile, a mysterious mission was beginning. Carlo noticed that many young people were abandoning faith. Churches were becoming emptier. The modern world was moving faster and farther from God. Most adults complained about it. Carlo decided to fight it. Late at night, while his classmates slept, the teenage boy sat in front of his glowing computer screen building something extraordinary. A massive online exhibition documenting Eucharistic miracles from around the world. Hour after hour, Carlo researched miracles approved by the church. He collected photographs, testimonies, scientific studies, and historical records.
His fingers raced across the keyboard as rain tapped softly against the window outside. He believed that if people saw these miracles, they would rediscover faith. But Carlo had no idea that time was running out. Far away from his computer screen, inside his own body, a silent disease had already begun spreading. Within a few short months, the healthy, smiling teenager who inspired thousands online would face a terrifying battle that doctors could barely stop. And before the world realized who Carlo Acutis truly was, heaven was already preparing to call him home. But what happened next would shock the entire Catholic world. By the time Carlo Acutis became a teenager, he was already living a life few adults could understand. During the day, he looked like an ordinary modern boy. He loved soccer, video games, dogs, and joking with friends. He wore sneakers, carried a backpack, and enjoyed using computers. But hidden beneath that normal appearance was a soul completely surrendered to God. Every day before school, Carlo attended Mass. Every evening, he spent time in Eucharistic adoration. While many teenagers searched endlessly for attention online, Carlo used the internet as a missionary field. He once said, "Everyone is born as an original, but many die as photocopies." Those words reflected how he lived. Carlo refused to follow the empty trends of the world. He believed young people were called to become saints, not copies of celebrities. His website documenting Eucharistic miracles continued growing rapidly. Using his self-taught computer skills, Carlo designed pages that displayed miracles from countries across the globe. Italy, France, Poland, Argentina, and beyond. Priests and religious leaders were stunned. How could a teenager create something so powerful? Visitors who viewed the exhibition often returned to church after years away from faith. But Carlo's holiness was not limited to computers. He defended classmates who were mocked for disabilities or appearance. When one boy was constantly bullied, Carlo sat beside him during lunch so he would not feel alone. Some students laughed at Carlo for being overly religious. He never became angry. Instead, he quietly smiled and continued helping others. At home, Carlo shocked his wealthy parents by living simply. He disliked wasting money on expensive clothes. When his parents bought him 2 pairs of shoes, he protested. 1 pair is enough. Much of his allowance secretly went to the poor. Unknown to many people, Carlo often spoke with homeless individuals. In the streets of Milan, he memorized their names and listened to their stories. To him, they were not invisible. They were children of God. Then in October 2006, everything changed. Carlo suddenly became ill. At first, his parents believed it was an ordinary flu, but his condition worsened rapidly. Bruises appeared on his body. He struggled with terrible pain. Doctors performed urgent tests. Then came the devastating diagnosis: aggressive leukemia. The disease was already advanced. His mother broke down in tears. Doctors rushed desperately to save him, but Carlo remained strangely calm. In the hospital room, surrounded by machines and worried faces, the teenager whispered words that stunned everyone. "I offer all my suffering to the Lord, for the Pope and for the Church." Despite unbearable pain, Carlo continued smiling at nurses. He worried more about comforting others than about himself. As the illness spread through his body, Carlo seemed to understand something his family could not yet accept. His earthly mission was almost complete, but in the middle of the suffering, strange moments began happening around him. Nurses noticed an unusual peace inside the room. Visitors walked out in tears, unable to explain what they felt. And as Carlo's body grew weaker, his faith appeared to grow stronger. Then, just before his final breath, the teenager made a statement so powerful that his mother would never forget it for the rest of her life. A statement that would later echo across the entire world. And after his death, the impossible began. Hospital room was quiet except for the steady sound of medical machines. Outside, rain covered the streets of Italy. Inside, 15-year-old Carlo Acutis lay weak from leukemia. The illness had consumed his body with terrifying speed. Doctors fought desperately to save him, but there was little hope left. Yet Carlo showed no fear. Visitors who entered the room expected to see despair. Instead, they encountered peace. Even in suffering, Carlo continued speaking about God. He told his mother, "I am happy to die because I have lived my life without wasting even a minute on things that do not please God." Those words pierced her heart. How could a teenager face death with such certainty? On October 12, 2006, Carlo Acutis died. He was only 15 years old. News of his death spread quickly through Milan. Classmates, priests, neighbors, and even homeless people arrived at his funeral. Many were shocked to discover how many lives Carlo had quietly touched. Some homeless individuals wept openly. "He always stopped to talk to us," one man said. "He treated us like human beings." But Carlo's story did not end with death. It was only beginning. Soon after his funeral, reports of miracles unanswered, prayers began emerging from different parts of the world. Young people especially felt drawn to him. Unlike saints from distant centuries, Carlo looked familiar. He wore jeans. He used computers. He played video games. He understood the digital world they lived in. Yet he showed that holiness was still possible in modern times. His Eucharistic miracle exhibition spread internationally, traveling to thousands of parishes across multiple continents. People began calling him the cyber apostle of the Eucharist. Then came the miracle that changed everything. In Brazil, a young boy, suffering from a rare pancreatic illness, reportedly experienced healing after prayers asking for Carlo's intercession. The Vatican investigated carefully. Doctors could not explain the recovery. Eventually, the miracle was officially recognized. On October 10, 2020, Carlo Acutis was beatified by the Catholic Church. As crowds gathered in Assisi, many people stared in amazement at his tomb. Carlo's body appeared remarkably reserved. Dressed in jeans, sneakers, and a jacket, he looked almost like a modern teenager peacefully asleep. The image spread across the internet worldwide. Millions suddenly discovered the boy who used technology to lead souls toward God. Today, Carlo Acutis continues inspiring an entire generation. In a world addicted to distraction, he reminds people that holiness is not outdated, that sainthood is possible even in the digital age, and that one young person, fully surrendered to God, can change the world. But perhaps the most astonishing part of Carlo's story is this. He never preached to millions from giant stages. He never led armies. He never became rich, famous, or powerful. He was simply a teenager who chose God in a world full of distractions. And somehow, that ordinary boy became one of the most influential young Catholics of the modern age. A boy whose story continues spreading across the internet even after death. The life of Carlos Acutis reminds us that life well lived does not depend only on how long, but how well. We live our lives, irrespective of our situation, and how our lives influence people around us. Stay positive and influence positively. Thanks for watching. For more inspiring stories, click the subscribe button, like and share.